Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, August 1st, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside is heating up today with a high of 102.8 degrees and a low of 70.0 degrees, so please remember to drink plenty of water and seek shade if you are spending time outdoors. Coming up on today's program, we are looking into the reasons why thousands of migrant children are seeing their legal protections stripped away. We will also examine the findings regarding the causes behind the F-35B fighter jet crash at MCAS Miramar. Plus, we have a variety of other headlines to catch you up on the latest developments from around the world. All this and more on Alex's News. Stay tuned for a packed show. This morning, we're following a story about thousands of migrant children who may soon face immigration court completely alone. Our reporter Ethan has been digging into this. Ethan, good morning. What exactly happened here?
Good morning, Grace. So as of yesterday, July 31st, 2026, a critical federal contract expired. According to ABC News, this contract paid nonprofit groups to provide legal representation to unaccompanied migrant minors. It was held by the Acacia Center for Justice, which worked as the prime contractor for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Unaccompanied Children Program. And that expiration came just one day before today.
So how many children are we actually talking about here?
The scale is enormous. Acacia oversaw subcontracts with more than 100 service providers, and together they represented over 20,000 minors. Now, according to Congresswomen Summer Lee and Chris DeLuzio, roughly 20,000 children, some as young as infants, could be forced to represent themselves against government attorneys in immigration court. Legal providers warned ABC News that without attorneys, the likely outcome for these kids is deportation.
Infants representing themselves? Help me understand how that's even possible.
It sounds almost impossible to picture, and that's exactly the concern. In immigration court, there's no guaranteed right to a government-provided attorney the way there is in criminal cases. So a young child, or someone speaking on their behalf, has to face a trained government lawyer. These children may be living in communities or still in federal custody. Without legal help, they simply don't understand the process or their options.
Now, I understand there's money at the center of all this. What's the dispute?
That's right. Legal service providers allege the administration has withheld about $65 million in overdue fees for work they've already done. And this isn't just their claim. Senate Finance Committee Ranking Member Ron Wyden confirmed that the Office of Refugee Resettlement, or ORR, has withheld over $65 million in payments since November 2025. So we're talking about months of unpaid bills piling up.
Why would the government withhold money for services that were already provided?
This is where it gets contentious. The Defending Our Neighbors Fund and other providers allege the Trump administration withheld these funds as a pressure tactic. They say the goal was to force nonprofits into turning over confidential, client-level data and privileged information about the children they represent. That's sensitive material about vulnerable kids, and the providers viewed handing it over as a serious ethical problem.
And how has the government responded to that accusation?
An HHS spokesperson told ABC News that ORR actually offered Acacia a new contract. But there were conditions attached. Acacia would have to provide that data and also bill HHS upon submitting applications for immigration relief. Acacia refused both requirements. So from the government side, they say they made an offer. From the providers' side, that offer came with strings they couldn't ethically accept.
Let's talk about the organizations themselves. How are they holding up financially?
Many are honestly on the brink of collapse. Jennifer Podkuhl of Kids in Need of Defense told ABC News her organization is owed more than $25 million and has completely exhausted its reserves. That's forced staff cuts and this heartbreaking decision about which cases to drop. When you drop a case, you're potentially leaving a child without any representation at all.
Is that happening at other organizations too?
Unfortunately, yes. Court documents highlight Estrella del Paso, a Texas-based provider with 40 years of history. They're facing closure after being denied $765,000 in reimbursements. Without that money, they can't hire attorneys or even accept new clients. So an organization that's served this community for 4 decades could shut its doors. And that's the kind of institutional knowledge you can't just rebuild overnight.
So is anyone trying to stop this in court?
Yes. A group of legal service providers filed an emergency motion in federal court to force the government to resume payments. A federal judge has scheduled a hearing for August 6, 2026. So that's just 5 days from now. That hearing could be a real turning point, because it may determine whether any money starts flowing again in the short term.
Now, is the government actually required by law to provide these attorneys?
That's genuinely a point of contention, and it's more nuanced than people might expect. Under the William Wilberforce Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2008 and ORR rules, HHS is mandated to ensure children have access to representation. But the key phrases are, to the greatest extent practicable, and subject to available resources. So there's real legal wiggle room built right into the language.
So there's no absolute guarantee of a lawyer.
Correct. There's also the Flores Settlement Agreement, which requires children be informed of their right to counsel at no expense to the government, but being informed of a right and having it fully provided are two different things. The bottom line is, there's no absolute statutory requirement that the government provide the attorney in every single instance, regardless of resources. That ambiguity is part of what makes this such a fierce legal fight.
You mentioned this fits a larger pattern. What else have we seen?
This crisis really follows a series of aggressive actions targeting migrant children. ABC News reported that DHS agents visited the offices of Washington, D.C. area nonprofits back in June. And the administration previously directed agents to track down unaccompanied children across the U.S. So these organizations have been feeling pressure from multiple directions, not just financially.
Has anything like this happened before with these providers?
It has. The American Immigration Council reported that the Interior Department issued a stop work order to nonprofits representing minors in February 2025. Now, that order was later rescinded. But even so, it resulted in significantly reduced staffing levels. So these groups were already weakened before this latest contract expiration, which makes the current situation even more precarious.
So what should people be watching for in the coming days?
The big one is that court hearing on August 6th. If the judge orders the government to resume payments, some of these organizations might be able to keep their doors open and keep representing kids. If not, we could see more closures and more children entering court without any legal help. Lawmakers like Ron Wyden, Summer Lee, and Chris Deluzio are also keeping public pressure on, so this story is far from over.
Ethan, this is a tough one to hear. Thank you for breaking it all down for us.
Thanks for having me, Grace. We'll keep following it closely.
We're following a scare over the skies of San Diego this morning. A Marine fighter jet went down just yesterday. Our Chloe has been tracking the details. Chloe, what happened?
Good morning, Grace. So this was a U.S. Marine Corps F-35B stealth fighter jet, and it crashed on Friday, July 31st, right near the runway at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in San Diego, California. That's just 1 day ago now. According to the Associated Press, the jet went down close to the runway and then erupted into flames. It was a dramatic scene by any measure, and thankfully, it could have been so much worse.
You mentioned it could have been worse. What happened to the pilot?
This is really the remarkable part, Grace. The Associated Press reports that the pilot ejected from the aircraft at roughly 100 feet above the ground. Now, that is incredibly low for an ejection. The parachute deployed as the pilot rose to about 200 feet, so there was very little margin there. Moments later, the jet plowed into the runway and exploded.
100 feet is almost nothing. How's that pilot doing now?
The good news is the pilot survived and is expected to live. The Marine Corps confirmed the pilot was taken to a local medical facility in stable condition. They're being treated for non-life-threatening injuries, so nothing that puts their life at risk. Given how low that ejection was, a lot of aviation experts would call this an extraordinary outcome. Ejection seats are designed for split-second decisions, and this one clearly did its job.
Now, I understand the crash didn't just end on the runway. There was a fire too?
That's right. The impact triggered a vegetation fire near the crash site. The San Diego Fire Rescue Department stepped in to help put it out, working alongside military crews. The Associated Press says aerial video showed a plume of black smoke rising from the wreckage in a dirt field. You had military and firefighting personnel using flame retardant and fire hoses to knock the blaze down and keep it from spreading.
So it landed in a dirt field rather than a populated area. That must have helped.
It really did, Grace. When you're near a busy air station in San Diego, the worst-case scenarios involve homes or crowded areas. Instead, the wreckage came down in a dirt field, which gave firefighters room to contain everything. That combination of the field and the quick response likely prevented this from becoming a much larger emergency. So between the low ejection working out and the location, there were a couple of lucky breaks here.
Let's talk about the jet itself. The military has a formal name for this kind of crash, right?
They do. The U.S. Marine Corps has officially classified this as a, quote, Class A mishap, end quote. That's a specific designation, and it's reserved for the most serious accidents. It applies when an aircraft is destroyed, when a service member dies, or when the damage exceeds $2 million. In this case, the aircraft was destroyed, so it clearly meets that threshold.
And these jets are not cheap. What are we talking about, cost-wise?
Not cheap at all, Grace. According to the Associated Press, a single F-35B costs approximately $109 million. So just this one aircraft represents an enormous loss. And to give you a sense of the bigger picture, the overall F-35 program is estimated to cost roughly $2 trillion. That makes it one of the most expensive weapons programs in history, which is part of why every one of these incidents draws so much attention.
$2 trillion. With numbers like that, how often do these jets actually crash?
It's a fair question, and the record is worth putting in context. The Air Force Safety Center has recorded at least 17 other Class A mishaps involving F-35 since 2000. Now that sounds like a lot, but you have to weigh it against how many flights these aircraft make. The Lexington Institute, which is a think tank, maintains that F-35s are actually the most capable and safest fighter jets in the military fleet. They point out that fatal crashes are rare, and yesterday's incident, where the pilot survived, fits that pattern.
So the safety record is generally strong, even with those 17 incidents.
That's the argument the Lexington Institute is making, yes. When you think about how advanced and how heavily used these jets are, experts say the numbers hold up reasonably well. The F-35 is designed to be a stealth aircraft that can handle a wide range of missions, so it's flown constantly and in demanding conditions. Every crash gets scrutinized because of the price tag and the technology involved, but the fact that this pilot walked away, or rather survived, speaks to the safety systems built into the aircraft.
Now, some folks might remember another F-35 crash near San Diego a few years back. Is this connected to that?
This is an important distinction to make, Grace, and I want to be clear. This crash is completely separate from an earlier incident that some people may recall. That earlier one was reported by ABC News and by ABC 7 San Francisco, which is KGO-TV, and it happened on September 29, 2020. So that was nearly 6 years ago now, and the circumstances were very different.
How so? What happened back in 2020?
In that 2020 case, an F-35B based in Iwakuni, Japan, clipped wings with a Marine KC-130J refueling tanker. That tanker was stationed at MCAS Miramar. The collision happened during a mid-air refueling evolution, which is when one aircraft transfers fuel to another while they're both flying. So it was a mid-air contact between two planes, not a single jet going down near the runway, like we saw yesterday.
And where did that jet come down in the 2020 incident?
That F-35B ended up crashing in the Coachella Valley in Imperial County, California. It came down near the Jacqueline Cochran Regional Airport in Thermal. And here again, there was a good outcome for the people involved. The F-35 pilot ejected safely, and the KC-130J crew managed to perform a safe emergency landing, so no lives were lost in that 2020 accident either.
So two very different events, but both with pilots who made it out. That's the thread here.
Exactly, Grace. In both cases, despite the destruction of expensive aircraft, the people came home. Yesterday's crash at Miramar involved a single jet and that dramatic low-altitude ejection. The 2020 incident involved a collision during refueling and a crash out in the Coachella Valley. They're distinct events, years apart, and it's worth keeping them separate so folks don't confuse the two. But the common denominator is that the safety systems and the training worked when it counted.
Before we let you go, what happens next with yesterday's crash? Is there an investigation?
There will be, Grace. With a Class A mishap like this, the military conducts a thorough investigation to determine exactly what went wrong. Investigators will look at the wreckage in that dirt field, the flight data, and everything leading up to the moment the pilot ejected at that 100 feet. Given the cost of the aircraft and the F-35 program overall, you can expect a detailed review. For now, though, the headline is that the pilot is in stable condition and expected to live.
And any word on flight operations at Miramar in the meantime?
The focus right now is on securing the crash site and beginning that investigation, Grace. Crews spent time managing the vegetation fire and clearing the area, with the San Diego Fire Rescue Department assisting the military personnel. As more information comes in from the Marine Corps and outlets like the Associated Press, we'll get a clearer picture of the cause and any impact on operations. But the immediate emergency, the fire, and the crash response appears to be under control as of this morning.
That's reassuring to hear. Chloe, thank you for breaking all of that down for us.
My pleasure, Grace. I'll keep following it and bring you any updates as they come.
That was our Chloe, with the latest on yesterday's F-35B crash near Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in San Diego. We're glad that pilot is expected to be okay. Here are some other headlines. In a case that really scrolled out of control, a jury has found Instagram and YouTube liable in a landmark trial regarding social media addiction. It seems these platforms have finally been caught in their own web of engagement. Meanwhile, the FCC chairman is playing hardball with ABC, defending recent actions and reminding broadcasters that they need to stay on the right frequency by operating in the public interest. Turning to international news, things have become quite turbulent at the border of Ceuta. The Spanish government reports 67 deaths following a mass incursion from Morocco, with tragedies including drowning and a stampede at a breakwater barrier. Approximately 60,000 migrants breached the frontier between Thursday, July 30th and Friday, July 31st, 2026. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez claims Spain fully restored control within 48 hours, providing aid and repatriating virtually all migrants. To keep things from overflowing again, Spain has deployed the military and is installing a 500-meter-long containment barrier. However, this situation has caused a real rift in the European Union, as PM Sánchez described the responses from some EU members as selfish and polarizing. Italy has put the Schengen free movement deal on ice with a 1-month suspension, while Denmark and Finland are questioning if Spain even belongs in the club. France and Portugal have also tightened their belts by increasing border security. Spanish authorities believe human smugglers misinterpreted a Supreme Court ruling on sea arrivals, leading to this surge. Sánchez is now calling for an urgent video summit of EU interior ministers to share the load of border security. While buses and trains are whisking migrants back to Morocco, Ceuta's President Juan Jesus Vivas says the city is still feeling the pressure and has not yet returned to normal. Additionally, Germany's MCAS has told Morocco to take back irregular migrants without delay. Finally, in the world of finance and followers, Trump Media and Technology Group Corp is launching the Truth API. This business-to-business data feed offers real-time access to high-ranking Truth Social accounts for a steep price. Representative Jamie Raskin has raised an eyebrow in a letter to interim CEO Kevin McGurn, noting that algorithmic trading firms are being charged a monthly subscription fee of $100,000. Raskin alleges that nearly half of that fee goes directly to Donald Trump, who owns approximately 41% of the company. While the service aims to give traders a head start on the president's posts, critics are calling it an insider information scheme. It looks like some people are willing to pay a premium for the truth, or at least a faster version of it. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.